Hello, everyone. Hello, I'm seeing more people coming in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's ethics session for universities, organized by CFA Society Emirates. On behalf of Professor Morgson, our university chair, I'd like to welcome you all. I'd like to apologize for Morgson not being able to be here with us this afternoon. But we would like to thank you for taking the time to be here today with us. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, who is no other than Sonia Gandhi, Director of Ethics Education at CFA Institute, and a brilliant speaker, if I may say so. So I'll hand over to Sonia, and well, I hope everyone enjoys this presentation and finds it useful. Sonia, over to you.
Okay, so I'm going to first share my screen, and if you can let me know that it's visible, yeah?
Fantastic.
Okay, so welcome everyone. And I know when I was your age studying at the university, ethics was the last thing on my mind because we used to think it's boring and why should we talk about ethics? But you will see, so that's why in today's session, we've tried to make it very light and we've tried to make it fun, very interactive and very, very practical. This I'll be using case studies. These are the kind of situations you're likely to face when you join the workforce very soon. And so I'll use online polls and I will encourage you to, talk to, unmute yourself and express your views or use the chat function. So for us, for you to be able to participate in the polls, can I ask you to use your mobile phones, go to www.slido.com, and you don't have to download anything. It will just, there'll be a hashtag over there and the passcode for this session is CFA. So if everybody could do that, that will make the session more interesting and participative. In any case, every time I put up a case, you will see these details again. So it will give you an opportunity to log in again. Okay, so I want to start today's session by talking about why is the Emirates, why has your local society organized this? Why am I here? Because it's part of our mission statement to lead the investment profession globally by promoting the highest standards of ethics, education, and professional excellence for the ultimate benefit of society. And a lot of what you will hear me speak today, I will of course use the finance context. But a lot of what you will hear today, it's relevant in any industry that you choose to join. It's not only about finance, of course, being from CFA Institute, I will use that context. But you will see in the cases as well, the kind of situations I put up, you are likely to face them no matter which industry or which part of the world you work in. There are 3 simple goals today: to encourage you to become more conscious about your thoughts and behavior so that you are likely to notice on ethical issues before they become a problem. Also, for you to internalize the fact that every single day that you will go to work, whether remotely or in person, you are likely to be confronted with ethical dilemmas. So a good strategy is learn to recognize them and see objective number 3, to discuss approaches for dealing with these ethical issues. So with that context, what is ethics? What is ethical behavior? And this is the best definition of ethical behavior that I have come across. It is doing the right thing when no one else is watching, and pay special attention to the second half of the definition, even when doing the wrong thing is legal. And some of you might wonder, how can doing something wrong be legal? And then where does ethics come into it? So the point is that most of the dilemmas that you are likely to face in your day-to-day work life, a lot of them, they won't be questions of legality because we are all smart. We know what lines we should not cross. We try to stick within the legal lines. But most of the ethical dilemmas that you are likely to confront are dilemmas of ethics. Even when what you are doing is legally right, there would still be something for you to think about. Even when what you're doing is legal, should you go ahead and do it, or should you think a little bit more about it? And you will see when I put up the cases today, we are not concerned with the law today. We are concerned whether our actions are honest, whether they are ethical, even if they follow the law, and are they fair? How would I feel if I was the person getting impacted by my actions? Why should you act ethically? And I cannot think of a better reason than this. When I do good, I feel good. When I do bad, I feel bad. That's my religion. Just think of a day when you did something bad, and even if nobody watched you, nobody saw you, you feel low energy, you feel something is not right, versus a day when you've done something good. You just feel more energetic about life, and the world seems like a better place. And hence, I cannot think of a better reason to act ethically than because it makes you feel good. We always say charity must begin at home. When you act ethically, you feel good about yourself. So what does ethics require? It requires education. I'm sure all of you have some credit courses in ethics. It also requires thinking about honesty, a word you all are familiar with, integrity, character, self-explanatory. I want to spend a minute talking about the last word here, stewardship. And it seems like a really big word, but in finance industry, you will hear it all the time. And I'm going to simplify it for you. Imagine the last time when you were not feeling well. In fact, this morning, I went to a doctor because I've been having very bad throatache. So, you go to a doctor, and the doctor, you tell them your symptoms, and the doctor gives you a checkup, and then they prescribe you a course of medication like my doctor did to me today. And we don't really doubt what the doctor tells us. We come back home and we follow that course of medication. Why? Because doctors are stewards of our good health, physical, mental, or emotional, depending on the kind of doctor we visit. And we, in turn, we entrust our physical, mental, or emotional well-being to them. Similarly, in the field of finance, stewardship refers to careful and responsible management of money that is entrusted to one's care. Basically, when you see the word stewardship, you should think about trust. You should think about confidence. Like I said, it's a big sounding word, but it really boils down to a mutual relationship of trust and confidence. So with this, we come to our first polling question. I want everyone present here today, to think about which has more influence on whether a person will engage in unethical conduct. Do you think it's our disposition, our moral character, or it is outside circumstances? So I'm going to open the poll now. And for people who joined in late, on your screens, you can see, go to slido.com. The passcode for today's session is CFA. I encourage everyone, I see around 15, 16 participants. I encourage everyone to log in and participate. Which do you think has more influence on whether a person will engage in unethical conduct? Do you think it's a person's moral character or outside circumstances? Slido.com, passcode is CFA. You don't have to download any app or anything. Go ahead and cast your vote. I can see many of you have started polling, so thank you for that. I'll give you a few more seconds so that everyone is able to participate. Okay, while others vote, let's look at the results. I love this. So we as a group are equally divided on this question of which has more influence on whether a person will engage in unethical conduct. 50% of this group feels disposition, and the other half feels its situations. So I'm going to park these results here, and I'm going to talk to you about an experiment that took place in the early 70s. There was this famous psychologist called Professor Philip Zimbardo. He was a professor at Stanford University. And he was grappling with exactly the same question on which we as a group are equally divided today. Situational versus dispositional attribution of behavior. So he was a professor, there were a lot of students. He decided to conduct an experiment. So he took a bunch of students and he divided them into two categories, prisoners and guards. And then a makeshift prison, a faux prison, was created in the basement of Stanford University. The idea was that it must resemble real life as far as possible. So there were tiny, smelly corridors. The cells of the prisoners were minuscule with paint peeling off. Even the uniform that was issued keeping in mind that it must replicate real life. So the guards, they got smart, well-fitting starched uniforms. The prisoners, they got loose, ill-fitting, faded robes, the kind of, robes you wear on a sunny day and you will end up feeling depressed. Now everybody is given their respective uniform and they are put in this makeshift prison. And Professor Zimbardo and his colleagues are observing everyone's behavior. Much to their surprise, most participants adapted to their assigned roles, far exceeding Professor Zimbardo's expectations. So the guards, in their nice starched uniforms with that newly found sense of authority and power, they started abusing, bullying, harassing, torturing the inmates. Who were these inmates? Many of them were their college buddies. And the inmates, the prisoners in the depressing environment of that prison cell, many of them started accepting this behavior in a docile manner. Some of them even had a mental breakdown. And behaviors were going so all over the place that an experiment which was meant to last for 2 weeks had to be abandoned in 6 days because behaviors were going totally out of control. So the findings of this experiment, and like any experiment, these should be taken with a pinch of salt, but they have something useful to tell us. They tell us that situational influences have more to do with unethical behavior than a person's character. Under the right conditions, for that matter, wrong conditions like the Stanford prison experiment, good people like all of us present in this session today, including me, all of us can be induced, seduced, and initiated to act unethically. And I know you might feel that, oh, I'm a very ethical person. Why is Sonia saying that, we can all be induced and seduced to act unethically? And I'm not saying you'll go out and you will start harassing your colleagues and things like that. But in the high pressure world of, like I said, either finance or any other industry, workplaces are very high pressure, and especially finance industry. There are multiple pressures on us at all times. Pressure to keep the boss happy, pressure to keep the client happy, pressure to think about our performance metrics, quarter end metrics, year-end metrics, thinking about our next promotion. So much is going on, which can combine and overwhelm us and lead us to act in a manner which may not be in sync with how we like to think of ourselves as ethical individuals. And in today's session, I'll talk about some of those situational influences. Before I do that, the first case study for today. Your boss who hired you and mentored you for the past 3 years is being unfairly let go because of office politics. As the sole support of her family, she is concerned about finding another job. 2 weeks before she is scheduled to leave, she places a stack of files on your desk and asks you to copy them because she'll use them in her job search. The files contain research reports that she wrote, marketing presentations containing her performance record, and spreadsheet models that she created. In today's digital world, think of her asking you to copy them, perhaps on a pen drive, some of these files. What would you do? Would you copy them, refuse to copy them, only copy the research reports she wrote or the spreadsheet models she created? Put yourself in this situation. You are likely, I know of someone who was found in this situation, and that's how we wrote a case out of it. There's someone who hired you, they mentored you. you perhaps feel you owe them a debt of gratitude, and now they are being let go and they ask you for a small favor. What would you do? I'm going to start the polling, and I encourage everyone to think about it a bit and cast their vote. Again, if anyone joined late, on your screens, you can see the website, slido.com. Go there, and the hashtag is, the passcode is CFA. What would you do? Let's get more people to vote. So what I'm really interested in today is the reason why you, not the option that you choose, but the reason you choose it. So once I reveal the results, I would encourage you perhaps to unmute yourself and talk to me about why you chose what you chose, or use the chat function to express your thoughts. But do express your thoughts. Okay, let's look at the results. Almost half this group feels copy the files. Some of you feel copy the research reports, and around 14% feel refuse to copy the files. Is there anyone who would like to raise their hand, unmute themselves, and talk to us about why they chose what they chose? It'll be fun hearing from each other, so I encourage you to do that. Any volunteers? Or if you can just, if you don't want to put on your video, just unmute yourself and tell us what you think. Anyone? If you're feeling shy, do write in chat and tell us why you chose what you chose. So the point here is, you might think that this is a very simple situation. As I can see, almost 57% of you have chosen copy the files. Why did I put up this case? The point is, you might find yourself in a situation like this, where somebody has written, it would definitely be difficult to refuse. Fair enough, that you've stolen my words. If someone has hired you, they have mentored you, you might find it difficult to say no. But think about it in this way, that every single day that they came to work, they were adequately paid for the job they did. And the idea of putting up this case is, when you are working for an organization, you are getting paid for it, the work that you do is not your property or your boss's property. That work belongs to the company. And by helping her copy these files, you might be helping her steal office property. And I totally agree with the comment that has been written. It might be difficult to refuse, but it's also wrong to help her. Absolutely. So there are different ways you can perhaps help her in a different way. Someone you know in the industry, you could connect her to them. Or somebody once told me that, it might be very difficult to refuse, but I will tell her that, she has been my mentor. My actions are a reflection of her values because she's been my mentor. And, would she feel comfortable me doing something like this? So there are ways to think about this situation. But the point is that in real life, some situations which might seem very simple are really not that simple. You have to take a step back and think a little bit about it. So so one person wrote in the chat this time, for the next few cases, I would encourage more of you to write so that I know how you are thinking about things. Thank you for that. Okay, moving on. Key point is, we often make unethical decisions not because we are bad people, but because we are affected by psychological biases, social and organizational factors, and situational influences. These influences lead to weaknesses in how we process information and make decisions. Like in this case, she hired me, I owe her a debt of gratitude, how do I say no? All this leads to weaknesses in how we process information and make decisions, which can lead to unethical behavior. So what are some of these situational influences you are likely to face in real life? Obedience to authority, especially when you are at the starting stage of your career, when you are young, when you are new, you want to please your boss. So if he asks you to do something which might not feel right, you might still go ahead and do it. A, because you want to please your boss. B, could be because you don't know how to say no. And C, we all like that pat on the shoulder when the bosses, when they compliment us for for a job well done, for doing something that they asked us to do. But the point I'm trying to tell you is, just because they are boss, it does not mean that what they are saying is right. You've got to use your own judgment before you go ahead and act in a manner which may not be right. Conformity with others. We often take our cues about the proper way to act from our colleagues, from our peers, from others in the industry. And how do we justify our behavior? Everybody else is doing it, so it must be okay. In the first case, obedience to authority, how we rationalize our behavior. I'm just following boss's orders. What am I supposed to do? Incrementalism, the classic slippery slope. We subconsciously lower our standards over time through small, tiny, incremental changes in our behavior. How to figure out how to recognize that you are indulging in incrementalism? Anytime you find yourself justifying any of your actions by saying, just this once, just this one time, I will never do it again, a red flag should appear in front of you. Because every time that we say, oh, it's just this once, we are rationalizing our behavior and we are likely to indulge in incrementalism. So they say the first step, we should avoid the first step down the slippery slope, because after we take the first step, the fall can be pretty steep. So incrementalism. Overconfidence and ability to act appropriately. We all feel we are more sorted, we are more ethical, we are more rational, we are more grounded than our colleagues, than our peers, than our siblings, and that leads us to take action without indulging in adequate deliberation. So at different points in life, and in the end, I will wrap up the session by talking to you about a real life case in which all of these situational influences came together to create some very undesirable outcomes. And in many situations in your life, you are likely to find yourself be working under the influence of these and many more situational influences. This is our next case for today. You are a portfolio manager in the international sector. You travel to a foreign country to investigate investment opportunities for your investment clients. The management of a large company that you visit and a potentially attractive investment opportunity gives you a very expensive gift. Refusing the gift would be considered an insult in this country and harm the good relations that you have developed with the company's management. Again, a situation you are likely to find yourself in. You travel to a foreign country, you find a very interesting investment opportunity for your client. However, this company gives you a very expensive gift, think very expensive, and declining the gift could be seen as an insult in this country. What would you do if you find yourself in this situation? Accepting the gift is okay because refusal could jeopardize an investment opportunity for your clients. Probably okay if you give the gift to charity. Probably not okay unless you tell your supervisor that you accepted the gift, or not okay for any other reason, and you can mention in the chat what that reason could be. So I'm opening the votes. Please use the chat function to tell me how you are thinking about this case. Why are you choosing what you are choosing? What would you do if you are confronted with a situation like this? How would you think about it? I'll give it a few more seconds so that everybody can participate in the voting. Okay, let's have a look at the result. That's a very interesting result. You guys, it's like 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Not okay unless you tell your supervisor, not okay for some other reason, and okay because refusal could jeopardize an investment opportunity for your clients. So I welcome your comments in chat. Why do you think accepting an expensive gift is an ethical dilemma? What is the problem here? So the problem here is that if you accept a very expensive gift, it can be seen to compromise your judgment, your independence and objectivity. And in this case, it might be felt that you invested in that company because you received that expensive gift. Somebody has written, Halima has written, it could be a bribe. It could be seen as a bribe in certain countries. I think telling the supervisor makes it easy since it's very rude to refuse. Very good comment. I like both the comments that have come in so far. Keep the comments coming. So the point is that I would say in an ideal world, never ever accept anything very expensive, right? Because let's just keep it clean. What is the next comment? Giving the gift is just a harmless gesture. There's no harm in letting your supervisor know. Excellent comment. So I would say in an ideal world, never accept expensive gifts, just keep it clean. But we live in a real world. And there is you want to invest your client's money in that company. You genuinely like the company, but somehow it's seen as an insult in that country if you refuse the gift. So best option should be not to accept. But if you find yourself in a situation like this sometimes, it could be an option to accept it, and then you disclose it to your supervisor. And you disclose it to your client as well, so that whose money you are investing in this company. Many companies have this policy where all these gifts, once you disclose, they are put in a pool, and either everybody will go out for a nice Christmas lunch or whichever festival is celebrated in that country, or they would pool it and give it to a preferred charity. So all that is very good. No one individual will benefit from that. Many companies also have a very strict policy that you cannot accept more than 50 euros, $50. And that really helps employees, because if you were to tell the management of this company that if I accept this gift, I could lose my job, I don't think anyone would be insulted. So my advice to you is, when you are working, make sure that you are aware of the gift policies in your companies. Be very clear about them, because if you were to ever find yourself in situations like this, that would come to your rescue. In case your company does not have a policy like this, you can think about it in other ways. Make sure you always make disclosure if you end up accepting a gift. Not accepting is, of course, excellent, but like I said, in real world, sometimes we have to do these things. So with that, I thought I will briefly talk to you about some of the fundamental ethical principles that we have in our CFA Institute Code of Ethics and Standards of Professional Conduct. I won't spend much time on this, but basically we must always, especially in the investment industry, client interest must always come first. We must maintain independence and objectivity. What happened in the previous case, gift case, accepting a very expensive gift could be seen to compromise our independence and objectivity. How to deal with conflicts of interest. Disclosure, full and fair disclosure is a good way to deal with some of these conflicts. Prohibition against using material non-public information, that is, you must never indulge in insider trading. Preservation of confidentiality of our client data, dealing fairly with all our clients. Diligence is literally what it means in the English language. Put in the work. Just because you heard some hot recommendation in an internet chat room, or you overheard something over lunch, don't go and invest your client's money based on that. Put in the work. Reasonable care and prudent judgment, basically making sure that we cause no harm to our clients or our customers in whichever industry we work in. With that, let's move forward. I want to spend a couple of minutes talking about rationalizations. Remember, I talked about situational influences, obedience to authority, conformity with others, incrementalism, as well as overconfidence. So that is very important. Next important thing I want you to remember is rationalizations. They provide justifications for not taking the right course of action. They neutralize ethical intent by reducing the negative effect that accompanies performing an unethical act. And they also justify behavior that is inconsistent with our own opinion of ourselves. So what are some of the common rationalizations you can find yourself making? Everybody else does it, so it must be okay. That's the way they've always done it at firm X. If we don't do it, someone else, this is the way it's always been done. If you, and I'll give you a few more seconds to just absorb, just read what's on the slide. If you ever find yourself justifying any of your actions with any of these statements, I think it's time to take a pause and think again about what you're going to do. Moving on. And this is my favorite case for today. So I want to, some of you might be already taking the CFA exam. After graduating from university in June, you became the newest member of the analyst team at MGM Capital. Your supervisor, the director of research, supports and pays for all analysts to obtain the CFA designation. You recently sat for the level 1 exam. This morning, you receive a letter from CFA Institute stating that you are under investigation for cheating in the exam. So just to give you some context for people who are not aware, this letter would only come to you. It's between the institute and you. So the letter will not be going to your supervisor or your parents or anyone. It will be addressed to you. You believe that there is no evidence to support this allegation. Your firm's policies state that employees must not engage in any professional misconduct involving dishonesty, fraud, or deceit, or commit any act that reflects adversely on their professional reputation, integrity, or competence. So you sat for level 1. This morning you received this letter that you are under investigation. You believe no evidence exists. Your firm's policies state that you must not indulge in any fraud or deceit or dishonest behavior. What would you do? Would you say nothing? Would you tell your supervisor what happened? Would you wait until the charges have been dropped, then tell your supervisor, or only tell your supervisor if you are found guilty? It's an interesting one. Any of you are likely to find yourself in this situation. I will open the poll, and I would really encourage people to express either verbally or in the chat their views, because this is normally the case which generates maximum amount of discussion in any session. So I'm keen to see what you guys have to say. Let's see how you guys are thinking about this. Go ahead, write in chat what you think. Would you tell your supervisor? Would you not tell? Would you wait until the charges have been dropped, or only tell if found guilty? Okay, let's look at the results. 83% of this group feels tell your supervisor, and 17% only tell them if you are found guilty. Okay, let's see how you guys are thinking. Are there any comments? Are people expressing? Why? I'm wondering, why would 86% of you say, tell your supervisor what happened? Why do we want to tell our supervisor? Tell your supervisor what happened. I would not want my supervisor to know I concealed something that he or she may have expected to be made aware of. It could break trust on other matters. And I love this comment by Kunal. Thank you for that comment. I think the gist of this case has been very beautifully captured in this one comment. So the point is, situations like this, even if you're even if the letter only came to you, your supervisor doesn't know about it, and you feel no evidence exists, you could use this opportunity to create that relationship of trust with your supervisor, right? Like Kunal wrote that they would not want their supervisor to know that they conceal something, and which they should have been made aware of, especially they are paying for your exam, right? They are paying for you to acquire this qualification. And this can be used as an opportunity to build trust so that next time when you are really in hot water, something goes wrong, they will be by your side to support you. They will know that you are someone they can trust, that even when you had done nothing wrong, you were very upfront with them about the allegation that was made against you. And similarly, in work, with your clients as well, sometimes you can work to the best of your ability, take some action on behalf of your client. Let's say you make an investment on their behalf and something goes wrong, it doesn't work out. It's best to be upfront, to speak to them about it, because I believe every such occasion is an opportunity to build a relationship of trust. And I cannot begin to tell you how important this trust factor is in relationships, whether it's with your supervisor or whether it's with your clients. And we are only focusing on the professional life right now. So no, that was an excellent comment. Sometimes when people also have different views when they feel that if they had cheated, how would they react about it? And so it goes into a whole lot of discussion. But I think we'll leave it at that here, that as has been articulated in the comment. Moving on. Run this by the legal department, but run super fast so that the ethics department doesn't see it. This is the classic tussle between legal and ethical. Like, I mentioned at the start of this session, things might be legal, but that does not make them ethical. Okay. So I told you at the beginning of this session that I will talk to you. I will try and put everything together for you in the form of based on what happened in real life. And this is something that happened in real life. This was a young person whose life got impacted because of some of the actions they took. And I can put it in the context of what we have discussed in the last 40 minutes or so. So the gentleman that you see on your screens, his name is Tom Hayes. He was young, straight out of college. He was hired by Royal Bank of Canada, RBC, yes, and then by RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, as a trader. In both the banks, he made a name for himself as a very smart trader. And then in the summer of 2006, I think, he was hired by UBS for their Tokyo desk. And young, dynamic, hardworking, intelligent, very soon he made a name for himself as the smartest trader on the street. And he was bringing in millions and millions of dollars in profit for the bank. And as a result, big fat bonuses for himself at the end of the year. Tom had this very interesting system of manipulating LIBOR. So for those of you who don't know what LIBOR is, it's interbank rate. It's the rate at which banks lend and borrow from each other. Trillions of dollars worth of transactions worldwide are referenced to LIBOR. So if you have a little bit of idea about which direction LIBOR is moving in, or what LIBOR is likely to be, it's a very, very, very huge advantage. It's a very big edge, as we call in financial markets. But manipulating LIBOR is not the right thing to do. How did he? So he had this network of traders and brokers in all financial institutions across the world who helped him manipulate LIBOR in a direction favorable to his trades. And in return, he would give them trades and commissions. So if you look at the title of the slide, The Spider Network, it refers to it is the title of the book which has been written on his life. And according to me, this network of brokers and dealers that he had all across the world, it's really like a spider, right? This is what it's referring to. And I remember 3 years ago or so, I was on a flight to somewhere and I was reading this book. And suddenly it struck me that it is so much about what we discuss in these sessions, what happened in his life, and I'll talk to you about it. So that's how I made a slide out of it. So he was making a lot of money for his bank and a lot of profits and bonuses for himself. And when the last financial crisis hit, many of you might be aware, last financial crisis was almost 11 or 12 years ago. He was at the top of his game, manipulating LIBOR and making tons of money. But after the crisis, there was a lot of chatter about reliability of LIBOR. So regulators across the world started looking at it. And their investigations led them to Tom Hayes. And by the time, and when they started questioning him, his bank let go of him. They didn't want to have anything to do with him. He got an 11-year prison term. He's behind bars away from his young son and wife. He's gone broke fighting all the cases against him. And I think even, of course, he will be released one day. I doubt very much that he will be able to work in the finance industry again. So that's one part of the story, very undesirable outcome for a young man like him. But what I want to focus on is what he said in the court, what he said to the judge. He said, manipulating LIBOR seemed like common industry practice. Everyone else was doing it. Who was I to question? Remember the situational influence I spoke to you about, conformity with others. We often take our cues. We feel just because our friends and our colleagues are doing it, it must be fine. Tom Hayes' case tells us that does not make it fine. He also said, my superiors continuously pushed me to pursue an envelope pushing strategy, to try harder and harder to make more money for the bank. The point is, the superiors are not behind bars. His bosses, his colleagues are not behind bars. It's Tom Hayes who's behind bars. So again, obedience to authority, the situational influence that I talked about. And then when I read the book, I realized that it's not one fine day that Tom Hayes got up and he started acting unethically. It happened gradually. He manipulated one trade, which ended up profitable. He got more confidence and he started doing it on a bigger and bigger scale. He got emboldened by his success. So the other two situational influences that I talked about, incrementalism and overconfidence, all four combined came together in his professional life and created a situation with very sad outcome, right? He could have had such a promising career ahead of him. So the point of using this case study today is to use a real life case study and show you that if it can happen to him, it can happen to any one of us. So it's important to be mindful of the situational influences and to be mindful of our actions and not rationalize them away, that just because everybody else is doing it or my bosses are asking me to do it. If your boss asks you to do something and then says one of the following, I'm sorry, no one will ever know. This conversation never happened. It doesn't matter how it gets done as long as it gets done. These statements or any derivative of these statements has no place in any conversation. So if you were to ever hear this being used by your bosses or your colleagues or anyone, it should create immediately red flags should go up in front of you. No one will ever know. This conversation never happened. It doesn't matter how it gets done as long as it gets done. So be very, very mindful if you ever see these statements being used. And to end with my favorite quote from Warren Buffett, I want employees to ask themselves whether they are willing to have any contemplated act appear the next day on the front page of their local paper, to be read by their spouses, children, and friends, with the reporting done by an informed and critical reporter. In this digital age, think of a YouTube video of your actions or your contemplated actions going viral, being watched by your friends, by your colleagues, by your bosses, by your partners, by your parents. And if that makes you uncomfortable, I think you should take a moment to think about what you are about to do. So with that, I'm going to pause here, and I have left a few minutes for questions. If any of you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask me, or you can put it up in the chat, whichever way you would like it. And if not, then we'll end it here. So let me give you a few minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Or if anybody has any thoughts, any comments about what they heard, any situation they faced, they would like to discuss. Yes.
Hi, Sonia. This is Evie here. I wanted to ask you to give some advice to our students. And I think I would like us to focus on how they can be proactive. What would be your suggestions in terms of strategies to avoid putting yourself in such a situation, which personally, I can really relate with everything that you've discussed one way or another. I think I've observed all these things. And it's always been a big question in my mind. How can I not be in this place in the first place, if that makes sense?
It's a very interesting question you ask, Evie. And sometimes while doing these sessions, I feel that more than 20 years ago, when I started my career in the finance industry, I wish someone had come and spoken to me, said these things to me, because that time nobody talked about ethics trainings and nothing was going on. So taking my own personal example, I think a good place to start is what these students have heard today. Like, we talked about the case of Tom Hayes. What are the things you should be aware of if your boss is asking you to do something? Don't just go and blindly do it. Take a moment to take a step back and think about what you are being asked to do. What could be the repercussions of your actions and how would it reflect on you? Like we also learned today, just because everybody else is doing something does not make it right. So the point is, and I know it's a much abused word, mindfulness, but really you need to be very, very mindful of your actions, and especially at the start of your career, of what you are being asked to do by your superiors and your bosses. Also make sure that many companies have a have a compliance department, have HR departments, and they exist to provide you guidance. So if you find that you are being asked to do something you are not comfortable with and you do not know who to talk to, go to compliance. Make your problem the compliance's problem. I remember when I was working with one of the international banks, and the head of compliance would come and do these sessions for us, and they would say, we are here to take over your problems, make your problems our problems. You have enough to do. You focus on your day job. And I found that very useful advice. So use these resources that are at your disposal at these firms to make sure that you are doing the right thing. And of course, some of you might be taking the CFA exam as well. CFA Institute Code of Ethics and Standards of Professional Conduct provide very useful guidelines for professionals to navigate these dilemmas.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sonia. Any other questions?
But you said, right, we can go to the HR, and if you have any red flags that you have seen from your boss, right? So if the boss is, okay, the HR is also involved with the boss. So
if the HR is?
if the HR is also linked with the boss, with the red flags that given, so what is the condition? It could be a risk of losing your job, right, for that person.
Yeah, so no, it's an interesting question, and many a times it might happen. It's a complicated world we live in, and what you are saying
Exactly.
might be. So, like I said, I would say, so this is what I follow when I find myself in a situation like this. My first point of action is always to have a dialogue, a constructive dialogue with the person, right? So if I'm feeling uncomfortable about something, the first thing I'll do is I'll have a dialogue with my boss, with my supervisor. If that doesn't work, then I would probably think of compliance or HR, right? And if you are staying in a place where HR is also and compliance is also perhaps everybody is on the same thing, then one must, and this is the guidance I have taken from our code and standards at CFA Institute. It's very important for you to dissociate yourself from any unethical activity that is going on, because, and I understand sometimes it may be at the risk of your job, but we saw in Tom Hayes' case how things really spiraled out of control. So I would say, in a very mindful manner, try to dissociate yourself from unethical acts, because that's never a good thing. Knowingly being involved in something wrong. Our code and standards also advise that whistleblowing is really the last option when nothing else works. When you have the dialogue, you've talked to everyone, and then to go outside and speak about what's going on. But we don't normally recommend it. I think it's the last step really. But yeah, start with having a dialogue. See if you have and this also gives me the opportunity to talk about something else. It's very important to seek out mentors in the industry. I think when I was younger, that really helped me. It could be someone in your organization. It could be someone outside your organization who is successful and at the same time is very interested in fostering an ethical culture. And you will find many such people who are willing to help you if you don't waste their time all the time. But you develop a relationship with them, so that when you are faced with something like this, talk to them. What should I do? Because in this one session, I can't cover all the situations. But if you have a mentor, they will be able to guide you as well. And I recommend it to everyone on this session today. I cannot state enough the importance of nurturing a relationship with a mentor, because they will come to your rescue in situations like these.
Thank you, Miss.
Yeah,
it was helpful.
Yeah.
Trying to see if we've got any other questions. No, I don't see anything else.
Great.
Well, Sonia, thank you. That was a very good question, the last one. Actually, I thought it was the cherry on the icing, I thought. Well, on that cheerful note, thank you again. Thank you, everyone. We hope you really enjoyed it. On behalf of CFA Society Emirates, thank you, Sonia, very, very much. Thoroughly appreciate that. And everyone, enjoy your evening, and all the best to everyone.
Yeah, all the best to everyone. Thanks for having me, Evie. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sonia. Bye. Bye, everyone. Bye.